Please subscribe. What's a small act of kindness you were once shown that you'll never forget? I was 9 years old, waiting for the school bus in Wisconsin winter. I had a thin coat, no hat or gloves. A woman driving past saw me and stopped, giving me a blanket from the back of her car. It was a long skinny one, so she wrapped it around my head and shoulders like a big scarf. I remember thanking her but being confused. I told her I didn't know how I would give it back when I was done borrowing it. She hugged me and said not to worry. I still have that blanket. After my dad passed away, my depression kicked into overdrive. I went to the doctor and got a prescription for antidepressants. While I was picking up my prescription, I started crying. When I apologized to the pharmacist for crying like a child, the pharmacist said, "You don't have to apologize. You recognize you have a problem and you are trying to fix it. That is a brave thing." It changed my perspective on treating my mental illness. I worked in bridal for 6 years, which means I was berated by hormonal bridezillas nearly 5 days a week for 6 years. After one particularly awful day at work, I decided to get chipotle for dinner. I was defeated and exhausted. The girl making my burrito bowl genuinely asked me how I was doing and I nearly lost it. She was the only person to be kind to me all day. I held back tears during my entire transaction. That was about 3 years ago and I think about her kindness often. Please be kind to retail and food workers. Alternator died while I was driving home from university. Engine died as I exited the freeway in the middle of the night in a not so pleasant part of town in the days before cell phones. As I'm pushing my car out of the intersection, a guy in a truck comes up and offers to push my car to my neighborhood a good 3 miles away. He does so, and I'm pulling into my neighborhood. He simply gives a wave and drives off into the night. I never even had a chance to thank him. I took my sister, who's in a wheelchair, to the cinema for the first time on my own. At the end, I realized I couldn't do the brakes and was blocking everyone. I felt like crying because I thought everyone was pissed at me, but some nice lady helped me, then took me and my sister out. She said she once had a son who needed a wheelchair. This was long ago, but I'll never forget. I was out of a job at a time that I had to support my mother. Finally landed one, but I had to walk back and forth and I didn't have any shoes that would hold up on the walk or the work. Went to FB and mom asked around for some hand-me-downs we could buy from someone. A day later, a very kind man showed up with a brand new pair of really nice shoes he had just gone out and bought for me. He left before I could even get any money for him. I cried. At work, I was complaining about heartburn once. I was still pretty new to the job. Didn't really have any work friends. Felt like an outsider. My life outside of work was pretty shit as well. The bartender on shift overheard me and ran to a nearby coffee shop to get me a chocolate milk. It definitely made the heartburn go away, but it was such a needlessly kind act. I don't think I'll ever forget it. 2 years later, we're still friends and she is definitely one of the kindest people I've ever met. I recorded a homemade album with my garage band in high school and handed out a few CDs. A few weeks later, my English teacher approached me with 5 pages of notes on what he liked and what I could improve on. He apparently got the CD from someone at the high school and listened to it all the way through. It was over an hour long. He didn't know I was the singer and guitar player until he asked the person who gave him the CD. He said that if I ever got a shot in a studio, I would create something amazing. Thank you to all the teachers out there who believe in their students. It makes all the difference to some of us. I literally coasted into a gas station out of gas on my motorcycle, then realized I didn't have my wallet. Some lady saw me patting all my pockets and that I was upset and offered to fill up my tank. I only let her put $5 in, which on a bike is a lot. but it meant so much to me. One in middle school, my softball team lost a match. A girl from the other team walked over to me and handed me a blue pouch. At first, I couldn't open it, so I said, "Thank you," and walked with my parents to my car. After examining it for a while, I was able to open it and pull out this really cute softball necklace. I still have it to this day. I had to get a spinal fusion surgery for my scoliosis. During my week-long recovery, one of the nurses asked me what my favorite candy was out of the blue. I told her chocolate. During her next shift, she walked in with a huge tin full of chocolate and a cute stuffed sloth. I still have the sloth. She also put up balloons and a happy birthday sign for my sister who was visiting me. Another nurse cried when I left and hugged me. I was literally astounded by their kindness towards me. I felt really bad that they had to take care of me all the time during my stay, but they really made me feel welcome. Also, my surgery was successful and am basically pain-free. So, there was this one time in the 1990s. I was helping my brother move from a teaching job after college. This was in the middle of nowhere in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. He was driving his little pickup truck pulling the trailer, and I was driving my crappy little Ford station wagon, packed to the gills with his stuff. It was a Sunday. I am driving along and my car just dies. No warning, nothing. I coast to a stop on the side of the rural highway and wait for my brother to realize I wasn't behind him anymore and turn around. After about 20 minutes, he finds me, the hood up, and neither one of us knows very much about cars. Soon, though, a man from the house we broke down in front of comes out, takes one look at the engine and says, "Timing belt." We inquire about getting the car towed the 30 miles to the closest large town and realize that it was going to be an expensive repair, even if the engine was okay and not ruined. This man, though, he takes a look at the situation, sees two broke kids in their early 20s just trying to get by in life, and he says, "Well, it's Sunday. Nothing's gonna be open. I tell you what, my next door neighbor is a mechanic. Let's push the car down to my driveway and we'll see what we can do." So that is exactly what we do. His neighbor calls his buddy at the auto parts store, which is closed on a Sunday, who does a favor and gets the parts needed, drives them 30 miles out to the house, and will sit around telling stories while the car gets fixed. This man's son, a kid of about 9 or 10, is hanging around. He is extremely bored. There were no kids nearby his age, and he's craving any kind of interaction, even with two guys in their 20s. The kid goes, "Want to see my treehouse?" and points to the woods out back. My brother and I look at each other, shrug, and say, "Sure." We end up spending 2 hours with this kid, helping him build his treehouse. When we are done, we go back to the house and the car is all fixed. My brother and I have maybe $60 in cash on us combined, and tried to pay the man who did the work, but he refused. He said, "No, you boys were in need of help and I wanted to help. You don't need to pay me. Plus, you kept my son occupied for several hours, which I truly appreciate." He then says, "I want you to do something for me, though. The next time you see someone in need of help and you have the means, I want you to repay this favor." And that is one of the rules of life I live by, taught to me by a generous man in the middle of nowhere who helped me out when I was in a time of need. I have 2 moments that I'll never forget. When I was younger, my mom was depressed and we had very little money. It was either eating or eating a lot. An old lady around the corner from us would invite us over for tea sometimes, or breakfast before school. She knitted me, my baby sister, and my mom cardigans, socks, and a blanket each one winter when it was really bad. I was at a terrible time of my life at 17, had a bad day at work, and then my train home was 1 hour plus late. I just started crying at the train station and was really wondering if it was all worth it. A woman just held me for a bit while I cried. She was a complete stranger. I've never seen her since, but I needed her, I guess. I think she saved my life that day. Choking to death on a roadside and a nice guy stopped and did the Heimlich on me. Thanks bro. Edit. More details for those asking. Leaving the park with my son. Put a hard candy in my mouth, said something to my son. Candy slipped down my throat. Immediately knew I was fucked, couldn't get air. Threw the car in park, left my son wondering WTF. Started flagging down people on street. Guy and his girl stopped. Shit started to go dark. Made universal choking sign. Guy understood. I could tell he wasn't sure what to do, so I guided his hands to correct position. After 4 or so heaves the candy popped out. I gave him a big hug and we went our ways. Scariest moment of my life, not dying per se, but dying in front of my son. As a boy, I developed rheumatic fever and had to stay home for months to work through it and recover. When the lady next door found out how sick I was, she made a big pot of homemade chicken soup. It was delicious and full of healthy, fresh ingredients. To this day, Mom believes that it was this woman's kindness and love she put into her soup making that helped me recover faster. I transferred in the middle of first grade to a school that did ice cream Fridays where you'd pay like 50 or 75 for whatever kind and then you'd watch an educational video in the classroom. I was unaware of this when the first Friday rolled around, so I didn't have any change and neither did the kid next to me. Normally there would be a few who didn't get ice cream, but this day we were the only two. So the teacher called the both of us aside and gave us each the change required to have our ice cream. I think the biggest thing was that she didn't do it in front of the other kids, so it looked like we had brought the money all along. It was incredibly kind of her. She was a wonderful teacher outside of that as well. TLDR. I and another student didn't have money for ice cream the day everyone else did. The teacher bought us ice cream so we wouldn't be left out. Edit. I am going to try to reach out to the school to find the teacher and send her an email if possible, as a lot of you suggested. The time my car broke down in the middle of the night and my phone died and I didn't know what to do. A random stranger pulled over and told me we all need a little help sometimes, and I'll never forget her words as she helped me jumpstart my car. I was around 19 years old in my first year of community college. My dad has lost his job and my mom was supported my entire family. We were struggling for a while. I remember being in my night class one day starving. I figured there'd be no dinner, so I told myself I'll go straight to bed when I get home and not think about being hungry. When I got home after class, there was a giant box of Costco pizza on the kitchen counter. Apparently one of our neighbors had bought it for us because my dad fixed a part of her fence a few months back. I think it stuck with me because A, I was so fucking hungry, and B, the chances of her bringing food that night of all nights was insane to me. It might sound so stupid, but I'll never forget it. Edit. Holy shit. Thanks to everyone who commented with your own similar stories and wished me well. I was not expecting this and I appreciate all the kind words. I am doing well now. Hope you all are too. Love to all. I broke my foot and was trying to limp my way across campus with crutches in the pouring rain. Someone ran over with their umbrella and walked across campus with me so I wouldn't get rained on. When I was in the army, we did a military exercise that took place in the woods where we had to explore and observe enemy movement, which lasted 4 days. Days went like this: wake up, march for 6 to 7 hours, do small assignments and build small outposts with 2 watch posts, 2 men watching each night. On the 3rd night, I and another guy had the night shift. You basically stare into utter blackness. You can't use light, otherwise you expose your location. I was tired, fucking hungry, and cold. Then my other watch buddy crawled from his post to mine 5 to 6 meters, yes, with gear and all. And whisper, "You want half of my Mars bars?" That was 2008 October, and I still get a great feeling of gratitude and kindness when I think about it. I was running late for the train. I sprinted from car which was about 1 kilometer away to the station. Some lady chased me the whole way because I had dropped my keys. She kept pace with me just to return my keys. I always return items that I find to lost and found or someone who may be able to assist because I'll never forget that small act of kindness that saved me a lot of hassle of changing my house keys and getting new car keys. I was going through a bad breakup a few weeks back. I went to my local Quiznos by myself and it was fairly empty. The manager, and I'm assuming owner, of that branch was there with just his wife. They were a sweet couple from Iran and talked with me a lot, and when I told them the nature of things they offered me a free sandwich. Fast forward 6 years and they've become a huge part of my friend group. He and his wife often invite us to dinner and we do the same with them.